All right, welcome back to your mat. Let's go ahead and begin in a reclining position, constructive rest pose with your feet on the floor. Let your arms rest alongside you. A couple breaths here before we start to move. And please, as in any video, take your time and only move when you're ready. So when you're ready, stretch your arms above head. Big stretch out through your fingertips. Play with wrist movements, extending and flexing your wrists. And then start to stretch out your feet, your legs, full body stretch here. Little zip of the belly button back in towards the spine. And then we're going to move into half boat in just a moment. So when you're ready, if you want to stay here for a little longer, please do. Sweep your arms down, lift your head up, and stretch your hands forward. And then lift your feet up, balancing on your sacrum in Ardha Navasana half boat. And then here you could play with some different arm variations. You could take your arms above head next to your ears, stretch out through your fingers, flex or extend your wrists, either way. All right, and then pull yourself up to seated. And take a moment there, hugging your knees into your chest, opening up your heart towards the ceiling. So a seated back bend. As you're ready, come on over your ankles into hands and knees, placing your shoulders over your wrists and your hips over your knees. Take as long as you need here before moving into downward facing dog. So if you need more time to prepare your wrists for this, take your time in tabletop with cat-cow. When you do find yourself in downward facing dog, easy little movements side to side. Wave your hips side to side. Bend one knee and then the other, pedaling your heels. And just twisting your torso around, twisting your hips around. Now I like to take my feet out wide. So if you want to place your feet way out on the outer edges of your mat, it will give your hamstrings a little bit more room to open. And that'll help stretch the shoulders and strengthen those wrists up a little bit more. So take your time to play with this pose, smooth out that breath, and then when you're ready, inhale, plank pose. You can keep your feet wide, or you can take them back in together if you want to hop your feet back in closer together. You can feel your shoulders now over your hands, over the backs of your hands. So this is really going to strengthen up those wrists and prepare your handstand practice. Press back, downward facing dog, exhale. All right, so again here, if you want those feet still wider, but in just a moment we're going to move. So you probably want to inch your feet back in closer together. Sweep your right leg up to the ceiling. Big stretch up. With your exhale, you're going to squeeze your knee into your chest. Now I'm going to flip over the top of my left foot. So I'm going to power forward with my left leg and then flip all the way over to the tops of my toes. Keep squeezing that right knee in and up. And then flip back over to the sole of your left foot and take your right leg back up to the ceiling, three-leg dog. We'll do that again. Exhale, squeeze your knee into your chest. If you want to flip over the top of your foot, draw your right heel up towards your bottom and then flip back over your left foot, right leg up, split your dog. Big stretch. Press equally into both arms. One more time. Squeeze your knee into your chest. And up and back, three-leg dog, inhale. All right, so we're going to squeeze that knee in one more time, but this time we are going to step up to the top of the mat. So you'll take your right foot right up to the top of your mat. Put your left heel down on the floor. Warrior one. Inhale, reach your arms up to the ceiling. Bend your right knee straight forward, keeping that right shin vertical. Press back with your left heel, drop your hips and open your chest. Think of this like a little back bend. All right, release your arms down and wrap your left arm under your right arm for Garudasana arms. Keep your hips low as you lift your elbows and take a bit more of a back bend here, pressing your forearms up to the ceiling. Another big breath here. And then slowly release your arms. Take your hands behind you, interlace your fingers, open your chest, big inhale. Keep pressing through your left foot, bow over your right leg. Humble warrior, exhale. Keep that left leg nice and strong. All right, take your hands back down. Touch down on the mat, and then lower your left knee down. And then we're going to split back, half split. Start to straighten your right leg out. And here I like to continue to work the handstand mechanics. So I'm going to take my hands forward and push the mat away like I'm taking downward facing dog. And if you need blocks under your hands for that, you could take 2 blocks, one under each hand, and walk your hands forward and then push your hips back. Like I said, downward facing dog. Another breath here. And then bend your right knee. Okay, tuck your left toes, step back into plank pose, open your chest. Exhale, chaturanga, lower down towards your belly button, and then flip to the tops of your feet for an upward facing dog or cobra shape that feels good to your back. Exhale, Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And take a breath or two here just to balance and ground before moving on to the second side. All right, as you're ready, lift that left leg up. Inhale. You're going to use your right leg to power yourself forward. Squeeze that left knee into your chest when you're ready. So we're going to open that hip just a moment, stretch it out, and then here we go. Exhale, power through, left knee to chest, push with your right foot, flip to the top of your right foot if you want. And then you're going to flip back over the sole of your right foot. Left leg sweeps back up, 3-leg dog. Notice how your shoulders move in this transition as well. So again, squeeze your left knee into your chest, power forward with your right leg. Shoulders move way over your wrists, creating that angle in your wrist that you need for handstand. And then up and back, 3-leg dog. Lift, lift with that left leg. One more time as you exhale, squeeze your left knee into your chest, pull yourself forward with your hands, push with your right toes, flip over the top of your right foot if you're adding in that extra little move. And then back and up, 3-leg dog. All right, one more time, just to get to the top of your mat for warrior 1. So squeeze that left knee in, left foot steps up, turn your right heel down, line your knee up over your ankle, vertical shin. Inhale, sweep your arms as you sink your hips. So as you feel your hips lower, your heart expands, chest opens, arms get higher. So you're really pressing up with your hands. This also is working the handstand mechanics. All right, let's take your right arm under your left arm for Garudasana arms. Lift your elbows, press those forearms up to the ceiling. You can grab your thumb or you can place the backs of your hands together or your palms together. Keep pressing back with your right heel. Keep lifting your lifting your elbows, and don't lift your hips, drop your hips. And then take your hands behind your back, interlace your fingers. Big breath here, open your chest, and exhale, fold, press back through your right foot. Drop over your left knee with your forehead or your chin. Lift your left and right hand up equally. So try not to twist in that. All right, then take your hands back down to the floor so you can lower your right knee down. And then split back, Ardha Hanumanasana. Again, if you can take your hands forward a little bit and start to press back. So as you press your mat away with your hands, you can feel your left hip pull back. So it creates a nice traction. Nice tractioning in the back of your left leg. So a deep hamstring stretch here. For handstand to be easier and more approachable, we need those hamstrings to be very open. Use your breath here to calm down your mind if it's getting chattery and to soften your body so you can actually fold into this and enjoy the pose, enjoy the stretch. All right, and then when you're ready, bend your left knee, plant your palms, and step right back into plank pose. Big inhale here. Exhale as you lower down. Keep your chest opened as you lower down. And then flip to the tops of your feet. Open your chest, arch up. Lift your chin, lift your throat. Soften your upper back. Tuck your chin then to roll over your toes and press back into downward facing dog. That transition is also super beneficial for working up wrist strength and core strength for handstand. Always taking your time in downward facing dog to just kind of to ground, balance out, and check in. And then you could always spend some time in tabletop or child's pose instead of downward facing dog. Okay, we're gonna take that right leg back up on your next big inhale. Sweep it up. With your exhale, when you're ready, squeeze your right knee into your chest. Step your right foot up. I'm gonna take high lunge. So your left heel remains lifted. Again, your right shin is vertical. So it's the same thing as warrior one, except your heel, back heel, is up off the ground. And we're gonna transition into warrior three from here, starting to work balance. So your hands can sweep back behind you for balance. And I'm just gonna kind of tap my toes up a little closer and then lift the left leg. For me, it helps if I stretch my hands down to the floor and maybe even touch down on fingertips. And if you want, you can take your arms forward, but try not to lift your left leg any higher than your left hip. It'll really throw you off balance. Let your right hip drop back behind your right heel more so you can almost feel like you're on an angle. This is going to be really intense in the right hamstrings, which is why we stretch them out before doing this. Okay, start to bend your right knee and land back on your left toes. Inhale, reach your arms up. Lift your head up, open your heart up, high lunge, Ashtha Chandrasana. Nice and slow, lower your left knee down, flip your toes back, and then your arms can circle back up if they came down to help you out with that little mental process of lowering. Exhale, now release your hands down to the floor and come back into pyramid pose. So tuck your left toes, lift your left knee, and turn your left heel down. Right leg straightens out. As many blocks as you need here under your hands or books or anything. You've got a couple stools at home. And then again, I'm going to push my arms towards a down dog shape. So I'm going to take my hands forward and press back. And the same thing here is in that half split. Right hip pulls back and then press your arms away like you're taking downward facing dog to create that traction in the back of your right hip. Your left heel could lift if this is proving to be way too challenging in the hamstrings. And keep your upper back open. Your shoulders aren't overworking, but they're not soft. They're strong. But they're think stable instead of overworking or pushing too much. Okay, walk your hands back up under your shoulders, and then sweep that right leg back up, three-leg dog. So you can press your shoulders back now, way behind your wrists for three-leg dog. Squeeze your right knee into your chest. And step your right foot all the way through if you can for a full split, or come back into a half split where you lower your left knee down, keep your left knee bent, and you're kneeling with the front leg straight. And then roll around as you need to. So if you need to let your left hip open, if you need a forward bend, stay upright if it feels better. And again, if you want to take those arms out, you could push the floor away like your downward facing dog shape. And use blocks under your hands if the floor just seems like it's too far away. You could also use blocks under the front leg or the back leg to act as a bridge for your split. So it doesn't have to be a half split or a full split. It could be anything in between. Easing each leg into the split slowly, leg by leg. All right, when you're ready to come out of this, start to walk your hands back up to the mat so you can press the floor away, and you can crawl your left knee forward, or you can sweep that right leg up and back into three-leg dog. And then here I'm just going to bend my right knee and open the hip a little bit, stretch it out. All right leg comes back down to the mat. Lengthen out your dog. My dog was way too short before I moved into plank pose. So if you need to lengthen out your dog, go ahead and walk your feet back a little farther. And then inhale into plank pose. Exhale, chaturanga, nice and slow. Take a back bend to open up those hips and get out of that intense forward fold that you just took. Exhale up and back, downward facing dog. When you're ready, that left leg will sweep up. If you need more time, catch up when you're ready. Squeeze your knee into your chest, and we'll set up the high lunge, preparing for your warrior 3. Lift your right heel, balancing on the left foot and the right toes. Keep engaging your right knee. So as strong as your right leg is right here, it needs to be this strong in warrior 3 when you fly forward. So find your balance first. There's no need to rush. And then when you're ready, start to shift your weight forward. Lift your right foot. So maybe the right foot steps forward. This is always my tougher side. So it takes me a moment to really prepare for this. So don't expect your body just to say, your mind says warrior 3, or your microphone, your tablet or your phone says warrior 3. And then you go, boom, here I am. Like, it doesn't work like that. So move into it slowly. Use your arms where they help, down, out to the side or forward, maybe even using a chair or a wall in front of you. Really feel the back of that left hamstring though. It's stretching and working at the same time. And your right butt cheek and right hamstrings are working as well. This is what has to happen in handstand. Okay, laying back on your right toes. Ease back into it. Find your balance. Big inhale, reach up. And then it's a slow, controlled movement down to your low lunge. I like to take my hands to heart as I lower. And then inhale, reach back up once I situate. Low lunge, big stretch up. Open the front of that right hip. This is going to help with that split. All right, and then we're going to move into pyramid stretch, Parsvottanasana stretch or prep. Straighten out both legs, right heel down on the mat. And then fold out over your left leg. Use a chair here if you'd like. You could do the same thing with your hands on a chair seat that I'm doing on the floor, where I walk my hands forward and start to press the floor away like downward facing dog. And against that stretch away, you have a pull back with your left hip. So a little bit of an opposing energetic force there. Left hip draws back. Both hands press the floor away. And they help to push your left hip back, as does your left foot. So your left foot is pressing into the mat, pressing your left hip back. Another big round of breath here. And then you can start to take your hands back to the floor and sweep the left leg rather, up and back into 3-leg dog. Okay, so again, we're going to shoot that left leg through for your split. I've got socks on and it helps to slide through on the floor, which is why I like wearing socks for this style of a practice. Otherwise, they really annoy me. They're kind of sliding around in this practice. It was kind of getting annoying. So be careful with that if you are wearing socks. All right, so here, move around in your split. You can turn your hips to the side. You could bend the back knee a little bit more or the front knee a little bit. You could put a block under the front hip or the back hip. And again, I'm taking my hands forward and pressing that mat away so I can work that plugging back of the shoulders that has to happen in your handstand. But at the same time, your shoulders can't plug back too much. They have to kind of squeeze up towards your ears. And that's kind of a contradictory, two verbal cues kind of contradict each other. And it doesn't seem possible, but you do want to do that. You want to pull the shoulder head back into the shoulder joint as you're squeezing your shoulders into the midline. And pressing away with your hands at the same time, pressing away with your triceps. All right, start to walk your hands back up, plant your palms, tuck your right toes under, and then you can inch your knees back in toward each other, or you can swing that left leg back up to the ceiling. Try not to take the mat with you. That's usually what happens to me. All right, and then lower your left foot down, back into plank pose for chaturanga. I'm going to take a moment in down dog first. I had to fix my socks, as you could see. This is why they irritate me. And then forward into plank pose. Inhale. Lower down slowly. Exhale, chaturanga dandasana. Flip to the tops of those feet. Really point those toes back and open your chest. And exhale, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Big breath here. Let it out. And soften into this pose before you hop your feet up and out wide. Coming into wide leg forward bend and just hang. And let your head hang down. Keep your feet pressing down equally into the mat and keep all 10 of those toes pointing straight forward. Try not to let your hips move back behind your heels. So you feel your belly really working here. And this is a great way to prep for handstand as well. Getting a little bit more vertical and trusting that your hips can come over your shoulders, because that's what has to happen in handstand. And your core is what helps to move those hips over your shoulders and then keep them up there. So here, practice a little belly squeeze, little belly button hug back into the spine. This next little drill is a really great way to help for handstand. So I'm taking my palms flat and then lifting my heels until I can feel my shoulders move over my wrists, massively rounding my back and pulling that core up in towards my spine. Try that a couple of times. Lift your heels, come to your tiptoes, and then back down to your heels. So you can look at your wrist and see that crazy angle that you're creating by moving your shoulders so far forward, but then your hips have to follow. So try it again. Lift your heels. Now take your hips forward over your shoulders a little bit more. And if it feels like you're going to fall, all you got to do is take your heels back down to the floor. All right, so you can stick with those little drills or hop your feet back in. And then we're just going to take a few moments. I'm going to come into Virasana, or actually Vajrasana. I'm just sitting on my heels, easy seated position. And I'm just going to work up my wrists a little bit more. We've been doing a lot of wrist stuff. I'm going to take my hands up to the ceiling and just start to stretch out my fingers and make fists and stretch. So squeeze and stretch. That gets the blood pumping, and it keeps your wrists warm without stretching them, because you don't want to stretch your wrists before you do handstands. I see that a lot, and that is really counterintuitive. You want to strengthen your wrists before handstands. We've been doing that. However, they start to get achy and tired and maybe painful. So you can come here and take those little hand squeezes, finger squeezes, extending and flexing the fingers, the digits, at any point in time to prepare for your handstand. And then when you're ready, let's come back to a standing L shape where I'm going to do those heel lifts once again. So instead of the wide leg fold, now I'm in like a warrior 3 setup, a standing split, right? Walk your hands in closer, shoulders over your wrists, over your hands, even over your knuckles, and lift that heel up and down. When you're ready, give it a little hop. Maybe it's just coming to your tiptoe and down. Now listen, that top leg needs to be working. So your leg in the sky needs to be lifting. So when I hop, that leg lowers and kicks up, and it doesn't bend. It doesn't flop around. It is stretching up to the ceiling like I'm trying to stand on that ceiling above my head with that top foot. And then the leg that's squeezing into your chest, squeeze that knee into your chest and heel to your butt, just like we did that 3-leg dog knee squeeze. Now watch, as soon as I straighten my left leg, I'm going to flop around because I look at my belly, boom, boom, boom. I lost it all. So just something to play with, and maybe even go to the wall. In a minute, I'll show you a wall variation that's helpful. Take a break though as you need, and I'm going to move into Padahastasana, hands under your feet. And stretch out your wrist. Not really stretching out your wrists. It's more of a pressure and a massage on your wrists. So this is a good wrist release without stretching them. You don't want to stretch them until we're done. So if you want to still play with that same side handstand, skip this and keep working on the handstand, or take a break periodically and either do those finger squeezes or this wrist press, this massage. And then I'm going to do my second side, and I'll show you here on the second side, I do a little bit more of a core engagement, and so I catch myself when I start to wobble in my handstand. Starting out with your foot on the floor under your belly button, shoulders over your wrists, and then just moving your shoulders forward by lifting your heel off the floor. Now remember, that top leg in the air is active. It's pressing up. I'm going to walk my hands back in a little bit closer under my shoulders and do that again. Lift. And then down. Okay, I'm going to do this one more time, and you can do that hop when you're ready. Hop, heel to butt. Squeeze the knee to the chest. Look at your fingers, not at your feet. You don't need to see your feet to know what to do. Again, squeeze. And now here, my top leg is kind of going back over my head. It's helpful for balance. When I take my feet up, I have to pull them over. Here, I start to lose my belly, and I suck it back in. Lose belly, suck it back in. All right, that's what's going to keep you balancing, that and your gaze forward. Imagine you're pushing your head into the wall, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. Now, when you're coming out of your handstand, take child's pose so you don't get a head rush. When I was first learning handstand, I would just kick up and then come up to stand, and kick up and then come down and up to stand. And my head would just explode, would just be pounding. Here's a wonderful stretch, rabbit pose, to stretch out your wrists and your shoulders and your neck after your handstand practice. So you can play with this. And then you can always come up to seated and take a seated just a moment to not do anything, just rest. You can stretch out your wrists here if you're done with your handstand practice. I'm going to go to the wall and I'm going to show you that version on the wall. And this is something really helpful to understand how your neck and shoulders need to be involved in this handstand. So I'm going to measure out at the wall my head, so I don't hit my head on the wall, but my head touches the wall. So I've moved my hands back. So I know that when I kick up into handstand, I don't want to hit my head, but I also want to be able to, once I get my feet to the wall, look up, push the top of my head into the wall, and that gets my feet off the wall. Now here your legs need to be squeezing like a mother, man. Squeeze those legs, press them up, and then suck that belly in and push down into the heels of your hands. However, teeter-totter your weight on the balls of your hands. So press into the balls of your hands. So that's a little helpful work at the wall that you can play with, head work at the wall. And it starts to get your upper back engaged. Any position in yoga where your hands are above your head, technically, anatomically, you can't change this fact. It is a spinal extension. So your spine needs to be extended like a back bend, like cobra, like warrior three, like chair pose. All are involving back extension. All right, when you're done with handstand, come to seated and just rest. Let your shoulders stack over your hips. Take as long as you need there. And then I'm going to come to an easy seated position just to lower down onto my back. Hug your knees into your chest once you get onto the floor. And here, take as long as you need. So if you're still in seated Vajrasana, take as long as you need there. Come to the floor when you're ready. I'm going to take a bridge pose just to stretch out of all those forward bending postures. And I like to take my hands above head with my fingers interlaced and flip those palms up. That's a wonderful wrist stretch after the handstands. Another thing that you can do is take your hands under your hips and point your fingers out. And this is also a good wrist stretch. This helps to build up wrist strength and mobility for your handstands. And then in bridge, if you prefer, interlace your fingers underneath your hips and snuggle your shoulders towards each other. Your chin and your chest have plenty of space between the two, and your neck is really long, and the back of your head is gentle on the floor, not pressing. So it's just resting there. You can stay here as long as you'd like. You can also come out of it whenever you're ready. I like to stay here for a few extra moments. When you're ready, sweep your arms out from under and let your hips come down to the floor. And then I'm going to move right into a twist, but if you feel like you need a knee squeeze first, go ahead and get that in. And I'm going to let my knees move over to the left. I'm going to pick up my left ankle and cross it over the top of my right thigh. So what I usually like to do here is take my left hand and just kind of stack it under my left leg to help cushion the left leg so it's not overworking and cramping. This is also another really good wrist release. Pushing down into that left wrist just kind of helps release the work. So you try to find all these really cool ways that you can incorporate wrists into poses like this. In any pose, you can incorporate the wrists. That's what yoga is. It's the entire body. It focuses on every part of your body. Stay in this twist as long as you'd like. Just let your breath calm down. Feel that right side waist and low back stretch out. You can anchor out through your right arm. And then when you're ready, pull back up through center. And I'm going to keep that ankle crossing and then hug my right knee into my chest for reclining pigeon stretch. And you could rock and roll here if you'd like. Moving off to the side, you can feel if you move off just like a quarter of an inch or a half an inch over to the right, it fires up that left hip a little bit more. And when you're ready, take your feet down, and then we'll take the twist off to the right. Let your knees rock over to the right, and then I'm going to pick up my right ankle and cross it over the top of my left thigh. And you can use your right hand to help, again, pat up your right knee. Left arm just opens out to the side. And I like this for the upper chest and inner bicep stretch on the left side. So once your knees drop over to the right and you kind of just let your left arm hang out to the side, it creates a nice little stretch across the left inner arm line. And that was just working really hard for you for the handstands. So again, notice all the ways that these poses help to prepare and recover from the previous and then on to the next. Everything's connected. The breath and the postures, they're all connected. Okay, and then when you're ready, come back onto your back, keeping that ankle crossed. Hug your left knee on in. Give yourself a nice little stretch in that reclining pigeon. And when you grab that left knee, if your shoulders and head had to lift up a little bit, that's fine, but let them set back down on the ground. And then let your shoulders anchor back without extra work. Just let your shoulders drop down towards the floor. And again, you can kind of move to the side a little bit. You can take your legs off to the left a tiny bit, and you'll fire up that right hip. Keep your right ankle flexed in this. All right, and you can let that come out of your crossing. Feet come back to the floor. I'm going to take my fingers interlaced and move my wrists around in a circle. One more little wrist relaxation and stretch to recover. So I'm moving them around in a circle in one direction, then switch directions, just rolling around. Take whatever shape you want. You can flip your palms out up to the ceiling, roll your wrists around. This is a really great way to stretch without putting pressure on your wrists. That's another thing I really don't like. That just causes pain in your wrists. Like in tabletop, flipping your wrists and stretching them out. It's not a really great idea. Okay, come into Shavasana when you're ready. Just let your body relax on the ground. And take a few moments here for your breath to cycle in and out, recycling your breath back into a very easy, smooth, and calming breath. You can feel the pace. You can feel the movement. You can hear the sounds of your breath, and you can even feel the temperature, the coolness as you inhale, and warmth as you exhale. And focusing on these things, using your breath as a final meditation and restful position. Take as long as you'd like here, and as always, bow to yourself and tell yourself thank you and good job.